Welcome to Corralling the Chaos podcast, where we talk publicly about the things you're worried about privately. My name is Alea, and I'm your host. This is the event industry podcast for companies and crew, where we're going to dive deep into things like, what does our industry need that it just doesn't have? What are the things you want to know, but you're just too afraid to ask? And what are the biggest opportunities ahead for our industry? We're going to go deep, and nothing is off limits. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Corralling the Chaos. Many companies at year end begin putting together their forecast and their revenue goals, all to prepare for the following year. But so many are skipping the most important step, and that is, how are we going to get there? And the biggest component of that is not wasting you and your team's time by trying to sell non-fits, less than ideal fits, or anything but your perfect customer profile. So we're going to talk about that today, the perfect customer profile. We did an episode earlier about your ICP, which is your ideal customer profile, versus your perfect customer profile. And a number of you reached out wanting to understand how to identify that PCP for your company. And the short answer is that looks different to different companies. But today we're going to talk about 5 steps to identify your PCP. So the first one is to decide, who do you want to be in the market? How does that play into the macro landscape and the changes that you're seeing happening around you? For example, are there market conditions that play into your PCP? Are there any future channels of market growth that your company can piggyback on? Maybe the industry your PCP is in, what's affecting their business? Have you historically sold into an industry that maybe is being compressed right now? So now's the time to look differently, to look elsewhere. So it's time to focus on an up and coming industry, perhaps. So which industries or prospects maybe have historically had a higher close ratio, higher margins? Those are all things that play into what this profile is going to look like for the next year for you. You also need to ask yourself, how does that play into who you don't want to be? Maybe you don't want to be the cheapest. Maybe it's time to be okay with not owning all of your gear. So who do you not want to be? What is your value prop? Spend the most time here thinking through that, as everything else is really kind of dependent on this. So sometimes the gap between your ideal customer and your perfect customer, it really can directly correlate between the company you've historically been versus the company you're striving to be. So here's what I mean by that. So maybe historically, a lead is a lead and you'll take it all on. Everything's on the table. Profitability maybe sometimes get lost in the mix for the sake of capturing cash flow. Versus your future self, cash is always going to be important, but maybe not at the sake of the team. Maybe you're especially given the fight for talent right now and what you've done to rebuild your team. So don't do it at the sake of them. Your company's value is also tied to EBITDA. So of course, profitability matters a lot, but sometimes saying no to leads can be liberating. So I'm going to say that again. Saying no is not only okay, but it's going to be necessary to say no to some non-fits if you're going to move towards this future profile of your company and going after that perfect customer fit. So first, land on, what is it? Where have you had to sacrifice in the past that you simply aren't willing to budge on for the future? What does your company offer and why? Where's the value? Or are you still selling a commodity? And really spend some time here. Think about that. No business owner is going to say, yeah, we sell a commodity. They're always trying to figure out, well, how is this valuable? But really think about it. Are you still selling a commodity, or have you transitioned to selling value? So give that some thought, because if you're still selling from a position of providing a commodity, this is going to be a useless exercise. It has to be about value, because your PCP is only going to buy on value. They're not buying on a commodity. So step number 2 is ask yourself, what is your business trying to accomplish? What is the North Star for your company this next year? Because PCPs can change each year. Matter of fact, maybe they should change each year. And your perfect customer would always be aligned with that. So find companies that are going to help you reach your goal. And so think about, what are those goals? This next year, is it profitability? Is it growth? Is it infiltrating a new vertical, a new geography? What does your roadmap say? So be thinking about where are you going to go so you align your sales efforts towards that. The third thing is dissect your current customer base. And I would highly recommend doing this as a team or putting a small committee together, but think about your best customers and your less than ideal customers. Describe them in detail. How do they act? How do they talk? How do they make money? How much lead time do they give you? How much do they value the things that you're doing? How much do they understand the position you're in? Ask your team what they like about them, what they don't like about them. Is it how they communicate? Is it the type of work they bring you? Is it their payment terms? Spend time here, really get to the bottom of why you love working with them and what makes them a perfect customer. However, word of caution here. Make sure these characteristics that you're throwing around are aligned with that North Star. For example, if your North Star is 30% profitability this year, but the characteristics you love most about your favorite customer does not include healthy margins, then they can't be your PCP. Not this year, not while your North Star is profitability. There's misalignment there. And I'm going to say it, even though you may love them, you can love a customer, but they still may not be that perfect customer. So be able to distinguish between, I love them, they're great people, versus they could still be great people and a good customer, but maybe they're not that perfect customer profile. Those two are not equated. They're not equal. Fourth step, be intentional, do the work. And what I mean by that is formalize it, socialize it, and then realize it. So formalize it, write it down. Make it documented. Everybody's agreed on it. Socialize it. Sell that way. Your messaging should point to this and that will then capture the attention of your perfect customer profile. And then, of course, realize it. You have to go make it happen. You have to pursue it. You have to be intentional with that. Do you have a go-to-market plan to reach them? Invest in the tools on how to identify these qualities that your team comes up with. And it's fascinating these days. MarTech is a really interesting space right now. There's so much potential, so much data, and it just makes it so much easier to identify that perfect customer and to create the demand for it and then to capture it. And so I encourage you to look into the tools that are going to help you quickly identify them and then message to them. And then the fifth one is you have to reevaluate this and do it often. Your perfect customer 5 years ago probably isn't your perfect customer now. So this is an always evolving process, and make sure your team knows that. So just think about what's most important to you. And as we wrap up today, I just encourage you to do the work, invest the time, because the return on that investment is massive when you're constantly working with the perfect fits for your organization at this moment in time. Thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, subscribe and reach out with any comments or questions at podcast@lasso.io.